Hey guys, so I'm going to show you how to work with vinyl wrap. This is carbon fiber vinyl wrap that I got from Temu. It is a very cheap wrap, but it serves the purpose of what I want to demonstrate today. And I have already pre-cut them. Make sure that you cut them with a really sharp razor knife and on a cutting pad, not directly on the surface of your table, because then you could cut your table and scratch your table. So we've cut these to the perfect size of what we need. Today we are wrapping these plastic pieces. They're actually for my wheel on my car. They're actually these inserts that go on and clip into the rim. I've done a few here already, and this is what the end result looks like. I can show you how to get these edges looking a bit better. This one isn't too great, but here's another example of one that is slightly better, where the edges wrap around and there are no bubbles whatsoever. So the first step of what you want to do is you want to make sure that you prep the surface of whatever you want to vinyl wrap. So the first thing you must do is, I like to use these towels, these wipes. These are not actually alcohol wipes, but I don't have any alcohol wipes, so what I do is I take one of these wipes and then I add some ethanol. This is alcohol ethanol cleaner basically, and I pour a little bit onto the surface of here. Basically I use this and rub any dirt or grime or impurities off the surface and let it dry. What else is required for this project is a heat gun. You can also get one of these pretty cheaply off Temu, and it basically, when you turn it on, heats up the air almost instantaneously, even better than a hairdryer. So basically I also sometimes use this to just dry it up because I don't want to wait. But anyways, make sure that you get all the impurities off. So for example, you can see there's a white speck here. Make sure your hands are clean, so you can just sometimes use your hand to wipe off these specks as well. So I'll show you how to apply one of these pieces of vinyl wrap. I've decided that I wanted this orientation to be like this, so when I cut this, it was actually in a smaller roll, not that big roll that I showed you, but the edges on top and bottom here align with this like that. So I want to stick it on like this. So basically what you do is you remove, so what you want to do is you want to remove a little bit of the vinyl wrap. You want to remove a little bit of the backing of the vinyl wrap over here. So let me show you. So over here you can just stick your finger under. It helps to have a little bit of nails for this project. You want to bring it a little bit out. You can just remove the whole thing, but I like to do this because that means I can prevent any bubbles from forming. So I pull out a little bit of this paper, position the beginning of it. I've done a lot of these already, so I already know exactly where it needs to be. Turn it around and I push it like this. You can use like a squeegee to push it, but I just push it like this on this piece of item. Obviously if it's bigger you probably have to use a squeegee, but I basically roll it up like that and push. Initially when I was starting out with this project, I was actually heating it up at this point so that it would curve into this section, but then I realized actually that was unnecessary. When you heat up the vinyl wrap, you'll see later in this video, it actually starts getting really soft and changing shape. So you don't want to heat it up that much, and you only want to heat it up in places where it is required. So I just do this and I push pretty hard. It is a little bit malleable, and the trick is to make sure that you pull it's quite hard around the edge. So basically you see over here, you can see that there's the edge here, so I just pull and I make sure that it is firmly going around the edge. So once you get it firmly around the edge, there shouldn't be any bubble. Don't be afraid to stretch it a bit. That is the whole point of the vinyl wrap. And now that I've completely stretched it across, you can see that it's sticking on the edge with no bubbles and going all the way around. So this is the first step, and okay, so I can do a better job of this. So just keep pulling and making sure that you push down on where you want it to adhere on the edge. So you can see that this is pretty much no bubbles at all. This part here, I think there was a scratch here on the surface, so that might be what's causing it not to be completely flush, but you can see that I don't have any bubbles at all if you use this method that I've just suggested. Now the tricky part now is to fold this over without having a crease, and on this side as well, and this is where the heat gun comes in handy. You have to have a heat gun for this project if you're going to be molding things around like this, vinyl around things like this, otherwise it's not going to work. So you heat it up a little bit until it starts wrinkling, you stop, and it becomes really soft. So you can see that basically you can pull it, and what I like to do is I pull and I get it to adhere around the edge over there. So you want to basically warp it so that that section is on quite nicely. And then what I do is I just use my finger to push it around the edge on the sides. I will heat this up so that it starts wrinkling around the sides, but I want to do this so that I minimize any wrinkles that form right now. So you can see on this edge I also want to do the heating method that I just showed you. I'll do the other side now as well. So if I did this without heat, it'll cause a lot of wrinkles, and then the wrinkles will form on the edge, for example like this, and it can look not too nice, especially if you are concerned with this detail. So basically, again over here I'm going to heat it up a little bit. Starts wrinkling, I pull and I make sure that on that corner, and I push down onto the edge itself to make sure that there are no wrinkles on the edge itself. And initially what I was doing is I was actually cutting with the knife as I went along, but to be honest, this is not necessary. The best thing to do is actually to pre-wrap them like I've done here and here, and then wrap them all around the edges first, and then cut the excess off afterwards. That gives you a lot of space to work, and it makes sure that you stick enough excess around the edges before you cut. Because before I was cutting, and then sometimes I would cut and then it would cut off the edge, and then I would have to either have a gap or have to redo it, and it's not very nice to have to redo this. So basically that's in a nutshell what you do. And I'm going to heat these edges up again. Don't overheat it because it basically melts and then becomes impossible to work with. It just becomes like gum, and basically it's not going to work very well if you get there. Cool. So I push this around the edge. So this edge I think looks pretty good. Like I've kind of got this part quite nicely without too much of a fold here. Unfortunately, if I wanted this to be less of a problem, I should have had more of a bleed so that I have more to pull over. But for now, I think this is fine for this specific project. And then here's another edge. You'll see here that this is much better to use because there's a lot more bleed, and you want to kind of like pinch it around this edge so that the fold is behind. So if you look here, there's no fold line on this edge or on this edge, and it's perfectly smooth. So I'm going to do it to this final side. Pull on both sides, push down on both sides, and there you have it. So the quality of this vinyl is not great, but for regular use and stuff it should be fine. Like for things like if you want to wrap your notepad or you want to wrap your cell phone, it should work well. But for something that's going to be exposed to elements technically like this, it's actually not that great. I will probably replace this with a more high quality wrap later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use acrylic top coat or clear coat that goes over this so that it actually protects the surface from the elements. And then once you have all the edges over, you can inspect the item that you've wrapped, and I'm pretty happy with the result. I think it looks really good, and basically, you know, all the shapes are coming through because it's adhering directly to the surface. And what you want to do is you want to use your nail or use some tool. You can use maybe like a screwdriver or something, or a plier, sorry, not a plier, or a tweezer to push down along the back of the edge, which is what I'm doing here. Okay, and then what I do is I just heat around the edges. And then just push it down again, and it looks very clean. And the final step is to cut off the excess. So I usually let it cool down a bit so the vinyl can harden again. So I'm going to use another piece that's cool right now. So I use this knife, and basically what I do is I cut along the edge that is the amount of bleed that I want. So in this case, I can cut along the inside of this piece of trim, and that just cuts the vinyl itself. As you can see, it tears off quite nicely. It is very sticky, so I usually like to stick it onto a surface immediately when I tear it off, because otherwise it just gets stuck on your hand. Like over here now, I have to get it off my hand onto like a surface. Okay, and you can see that. So this one doesn't cut very nicely, so a bit more. Take that out. Sometimes after you cut, there are pieces that are still not adhered properly to the surface, so just push those pieces down. And here you have the final result. For me, I don't really care too much about how the back of this looks, but if you really are looking to make it really perfect, you can obviously cut it even more, but for me this is good enough, and yeah, I'm quite happy with the result. If you like this video, remember to click the like button and subscribe, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And yeah, that's how you do DIY vinyl wrap at home, and these are the items that you need.